Hi, everyone. Thanks for being here today. My name is Ashley Parker, but I go by my last name, so you can just call me Parker, and I'm the Health and Wellbeing Specialist in Risk Services. My background is in nutrition and health coaching, and I'm also the health coach for the UC Santa Cruz Diabetes Prevention Program, which I'll talk about later. And so, talking about different habits and strategies to prevent or delay type 2 diabetes is very important and close to my heart. So, let's go ahead and get started. As we talk about the lifestyle habits and the strategies that we can add to help improve our health and decrease our risk, think about what is one nutrition change that you can try today. So to start, let's talk about what exactly is diabetes. There are two types, and they involve the hormone insulin. Insulin helps to move the sugar from your blood into your body cells so that they can use it for energy. Blood sugar is also called blood glucose, and so I'll use those two terms interchangeably. Type 1 diabetes is an autoimmune disease where the pancreas has issues making adequate insulin, so folks need to take insulin to live. For this workshop, we'll concentrate on type 2 diabetes because this type is possible to prevent or delay its development through lifestyle and habits. In type 2 diabetes, the body develops insulin resistance, where the cells stop responding to the insulin and blood sugar can't move into your cells. So the buildup of that blood sugar over time can cause really serious health issues like heart disease, nerve damage, and kidney damage. But before type 2 diabetes is a stage called prediabetes. And this is where we see elevated blood sugar levels, but they're not high enough to diagnose type 2 diabetes. So folks who get tested and find out that they have prediabetes have an opportunity to make some lifestyle changes to help slow or even stop its progression. So with diabetes, blood glucose is a main concern. Blood glucose will increase after eating if you're eating a carbohydrate containing food. And so I just like to clarify that that is normal. What we're trying to do is avoid a big sudden spike and having elevated blood glucose levels long after we finish eating. Symptoms of type 2 diabetes can be pretty mild, but some that one might experience includes urinating often, feeling very thirsty or hungry even if you're drinking or eating, maybe feeling extreme fatigue or blurry vision. Cuts might be slow to heal, or there might be feelings of tingling, pain, or numbness in the hands and feet. Or again, it might even be that symptoms go unnoticed. So for our first question, true or false? If type 2 diabetes runs in my family, I am very likely to develop it as well. Go ahead and take a moment to think of your answer. So if you answered false, that is correct. The good news is that even if there is a strong history of type 2 diabetes in our families, there are lifestyle changes and strategies that we can do to prevent or delay developing type 2 diabetes ourselves. So that brings us to risk factors. Having certain risk factors don't necessarily predict that someone will develop type 2 diabetes, but it can indicate if someone is more or less likely to. Sometimes there are things that we just can't change, like our age, genetics, and race, but we can modify lifestyle habits. So, for example, physical activity directly lowers blood glucose levels, and it also helps to lower blood pressure as well. Smoking directly contributes to a lot of health issues, including heart disease and impaired glucose metabolism. So quitting smoking can be very powerful as well. And for overweight individuals, a modest weight loss of 5 to 7% can help to improve blood sugar levels potentially, HbA1c levels, and blood cholesterol levels. The only way to know if you have prediabetes or type 2 diabetes is to get tested, though, by your healthcare provider. So if you are at high risk, I encourage you to reach out to them and get tested. So, what can we do? Starting with food, we eat food every single day, multiple times a day. So, that is plenty of opportunity that we can use food to impact our health. I really like this quote by Michael Pollan: eat food, not too much, and mostly plants. Getting in enough whole foods, vegetables, and minding portion sizes are really the keys to help improve overall health and potentially reduce chronic health risks. The healthy plate is a visual representation of eating patterns to help reducing risk of chronic disease. It was designed by the CDC, and this healthy plate here was adapted by the American Diabetics Association for guidelines on healthy eating for diabetes. Start by filling your plate halfway with non-starchy vegetables. It's the fiber and the micronutrients in these that are going to be helping regulate blood glucose levels. And as we navigate today, you'll notice that the theme is fiber, micronutrients, and antioxidants. And all of these are really found in the highest concentration in plant foods. So moving on to lean proteins, which are recommended to be a quarter of the plate, keeping in mind that this also includes plant-based sources of protein. Then we have carbs, and carbs are still important to overall health, but choosing complex carbs is the key, and we'll talk about that in a moment. A portion of healthy fats are implied, and these are needed for brain health, hormonal health, and even provide anti-inflammatory effects. And dairy is not pictured as well, but it contains protein, and it also contains simple sugars. So our recommendation here is to go for moderate portions of dairy and choosing low or non-fat options. And you can apply this healthy plate method, not just to a plate, but to bowls, snacks, or even you can look at eating over a whole day. Americans, unfortunately, are generally deficient in fiber. That's why it's so important to fill your plate halfway with vegetables first. This will help with balancing portion sizes for protein and carbs too. Non-starchy vegetables tend to be very nutrient dense while also being calorically low, and they contain really high levels of polyphenols, and those are associated with protection against chronic diseases like type 2 diabetes, heart disease, and some cancers. Additionally, we don't digest fiber, so insoluble fiber, like roughage, doesn't get broken down by our bodies. And instead, it acts as a sort of barrier against glucose absorption. The other type of fiber, soluble fiber, turns into a gel, and that can help absorb excess cholesterol, helping with heart health, and also to slow down glucose absorption as well. Diets that are high in leafy green vegetables and non-starchy vegetables are also really high in micronutrients, like potassium and magnesium, and these support vital body functions. Nutrient deficiencies also prevent the body and metabolism from functioning optimally. And so covering your bases with non-starchy vegetables first can be a great way to make sure that you're getting all of your nutrients in. Here comes our next question. What are your favorite ways to eat vegetables? Go ahead and think about your favorite dishes, or if you have any other ideas. And in case you're wondering, here are my favorite ways to eat vegetables. I love a good soup. I also sometimes just can't be bothered preparing a dish, so I'll eat vegetables straight from the fridge. It's super efficient. And of course, I love a good veggie side dish. Now let's talk about carbs. Carbs are the main source of energy for your body and especially your brain. So it's not that you have to cut out carbs because you don't. And again, blood glucose will rise after eating. So what we want to do is help to keep those blood sugar levels steady and in a healthy range. And to do that, the nutritional quality of the carb is really important, as well as using the healthy plate method to balance the overall meal or snack. Whole grains retain all parts of the grain, with the bran and germ containing most of the fiber and nutrients. Refined grains, however, have those outer layers polished off, and so that's leaving the starchy middle. And those get broken down very quickly, turn into glucose, and are absorbed very fast into the bloodstream. So again, fiber here is key, and you can find plenty of whole grain options in the stores, like in your oats, brown rice, whole wheat flour, whole wheat pastas. Those packages can even sometimes have a whole grain sticker, so you can easily identify if you have a whole grain product. Complex carbs, on the other hand, are your potatoes, beans, lentils, peas, and even fruit. These foods are high in fiber as well, and research associates these high fiber foods with reductions in total cholesterol, LDL cholesterol, and triglyceride levels. High fiber foods also increase satiety, so you aren't feeling hungry very quickly after eating, and you aren't reaching for high sugary snacks all the time. Potatoes, however, are one of the most satiating foods, so they can be really helpful in keeping hunger in check. Keeping the skin on is important, of course, because that's where most of the fiber, vitamins, and minerals are. And when you're cooking your potatoes, you just basically want to avoid frying them because that's where we see a big source of unhealthy fats. As for fruits, yes, we know they do have sugar, but again, they're also really high in fiber, vitamins, minerals, antioxidants, and even water. So if it's between chips or fruit, yes, your most nutritious option is going to be fruit. We also talked about refined grains, those white and starchy middle carbs. And again, they get absorbed into the bloodstream quickly, and we find them in cakes, pastries, sodas, anything with a white flour. But keep in mind that also includes natural sugars like honey and maple. They'll be absorbed into the blood just as quickly. But I do realize and acknowledge that cutting out all of these things immediately, all of these refined and added sugar products, is not necessarily realistic for most. So, to avoid getting overwhelmed, think about making just one change to start. For example, it can be switching sandwich bread to 100% whole grain bread, whole wheat bread. Or it can even be switching a regular can of soda to one of those smaller cans at lunchtime. So we're making small changes, even if it's moving from a large size to a smaller size, because that will still reduce the blood sugar impact. Now for our next question, choose all of the lean protein food options. And I'll give you a second to try that out. All right, and if you chose these answers, sirloin steak is lean. Those will be our loins and rounds, typically for red meats. Peas are our legumes. Non-fat yogurt is a protein source, and also choosing low or non-fat. And additionally, soy milk is a source of complete plant protein as well. So protein portions are a quarter of the plate. Plant-based protein options include legumes like our beans, peas, and lentils. There's also soy foods and grains like quinoa, brown rice. Nuts and seeds are also protein options and have a lot of fiber too. And then seitan, if you include gluten, is a very dense protein source. Lean animal proteins include poultry like chicken and turkey, but with the skin removed. Also, fish and seafood, and for cuts of red meat, looking for loins and rounds with less marbling, and for ground meats, choosing 90% or higher lean meat. And lastly, dairy has some simple carbohydrate sugars as they contain the milk sugar lactose, but they also have protein as well, like you would find in Greek yogurt. So again, look for lower non-fat options. Fats are essential for overall health as well. Fats provide vitamins. They help to lower inflammation if we're talking about, for example, omega-3 fatty acids, and can help to reduce LDL cholesterol if we're consuming the healthy ones, such as polyunsaturated and monounsaturated fats. These are associated with heart health and typically are liquid at room temperature. So that's an easy way that you can tell. Saturated fats, on the other hand, for example, lard and butter, they tend to be solid at room temperature. And that solidness makes it more likely to stick to damaged arteries and can lead to heart disease. So, to add some more healthy polyunsaturated and monounsaturated fats, you can turn to vegetable cooking oils like olive oil, avocado, and canola oil. Those are great ways to go. But saturated fat options to be mindful of are tropical plant oils like coconut oil, palm oil, again, butter, large grain. And a fun fact though, canola oil actually has more omega 3s than olive oil. And that was very surprising for me to learn. But on the other hand, olive oil is a great source of monounsaturated fats. But that's not to say that one's necessarily better than the other. They both serve their own benefits. Also, eating fatty fish, nuts, seeds, and avocados are all great sources of healthy fats as well. To try some things out, you might want to top your next salad with some toasted almonds, or switch Nutella to some dark chocolate and crushed hazelnuts. And again, lastly, being mindful of limiting saturated fats. And in addition to animal fats like butter and lard, are tropical oils like palm and coconut oil. There are also hydrogenated and partially hydrogenated fats that are very commonly found in prepackaged snacks. But when it comes to processed foods, it's not whether it's good or bad for you, because really it just depends. Processed foods doesn't necessarily mean that it's something we should or shouldn't eat. Anything that's changed from its natural state is technically processed. So if you slice an apple, then you therefore have processed it. Unprocessed or minimally processed foods are your whole foods, and these are typically really high in nutrition. So, fruits, vegetables, meats, but even things like dried rice or frozen vegetables and fruit. Processed foods, on the other hand, typically have had preparation and cooking involved that may add oil, salt, and sugar. They can also be a healthy inclusion to a balanced diet. For instance, canned veggies are processed foods, and those that are low in sodium can be good for blood pressure, and they provide fiber and nutrition just as well, while being convenient and affordable. Even if you're looking at a simple bread of flour, salt, water, and sourdough, that's technically processed. But if we start to take a look at something that has gone through an industrialized process, for example, highly shelf-stable supermarket bread that has additives. That's an ultra-processed food. Some ultra-processed foods can be high in added fats and added salt and sugar, and the very highly palatable snacks, so the ones that keep you reaching for more, like chips, cookies, French fries, and soda, they taste really great and they're easy to get and also very affordable. So those are some considerations that can make it easy to overeat and potentially cause blood sugar spikes. But keeping in mind, on the other hand, we also have products like Ensure shakes and protein powders that can help us meet other nutritional goals. And so let's shift from demonizing certain foods, like whether it's processed or ultra processed. And now let's talk about how we can take a look at our foods and make more informed decisions. All right, next question. Do you read food labels? And remember, there are no wrong answers. So, when it comes to helping us decide whether or not a food is in line with our health goals, we can take a look at food labels. The information on the label is based off of a 2,000 calorie diet. So, looking at the serving sizes, you might find that they are potentially unrealistic and not anything that you would personally serve yourself. And it also doesn't necessarily mean that is the size that you should serve yourself. So, keeping that in mind, there might be some math involved so you can compare your serving to your own needs. As just a high-level overview, the nutrients that we want to keep moderately low are the saturated fats, sodium for blood pressure control, and added sugars. Whereas on the other hand, we want to make sure that we're reaching the recommendation for dietary fiber, which is about 24 or more grams of fiber a day. The daily value, which is in the right-hand purple column of the label, tells you how much of that nutrient relates to the daily recommendation based on 2,000 calories a day for the defined serving size. So again, you might need to do a little math, or if you use a food tracking app like Chronometer or MyFitnessPal, it can help do the math for you. You can use a kitchen scale, measuring cups or measuring foods to help you learn about the different portion sizes. But if you prefer not to use one of those apps, that's totally fine. To learn more about where you're at nutritionally, there are other ways to track so that you can gather good data on yourself too. For example, you can write down a food diary for a couple days and you can see where you're starting, or you might count how many servings of leafy green vegetables that you have in a day and then make goals to increase from there. Next, we have some tips and tricks to help regulate blood sugar. First, you can create your very own resistant starch by cooking and cooling your starchy foods like rice, potatoes, or bread. And you can do this by sticking them in the fridge or the freezer for 24 hours. Glucose from the starch gets transformed so it's no longer available to your body, and it lowers the glucose levels a little bit. When you do eat that, the resistant starch acts more like a fiber, but instead feeds your gut microbiome and helps to support a healthy metabolism and immune system. Next, eating breakfast and avoiding skipping meals can actually help protect against blood sugar spikes. Research shows that skipping meals and skipping breakfast is associated with increased risk for type 2 diabetes, and it can increase overeating later on in the day, which can lead to blood sugar spikes, and it also leads to impaired insulin sensitivity throughout the rest of the day. Next, eating vegetables first in your meals can help to slow down blood glucose absorption, again, because of that fiber barrier. It also helps with portion control because you're filling up on high volume foods. Research also shows that eating carbs last in your meal consistently shows lower blood glucose levels and insulin levels after eating too. Next, adding vegetables to your snacks can really help you add up to the 24 grams or more of fiber that you need in a day pretty quickly. But I wouldn't recommend going from eating a low amount of fiber in a day to all of a sudden eating all of the things that contain a lot of fiber in a day because it can overwhelm your gut microbiome. It needs time to multiply all the good bacteria that will help to process all of that fiber for you. So be sure to increase slowly. Also, I'd like to remind you that you don't have to give up all of your favorite foods. Absolutely enjoy them. Use the healthy plate method and think about mindful portions. So even if you want to eat a cookie, you don't need to feel bad about eating a cookie. And think about how you can pair it with other items to help boost that fiber, boost that nutrition. And for example, because I am a huge lover of cookies, I sometimes like to pair it with a fat-free Greek yogurt to get a boost of protein. Or if I have some baby carrots in the fridge, I'll just eat a handful of those first. And lastly, taking some time to go on a quick walk after you finish eating helps to lower blood sugar levels because your legs are moving, you're walking around, and your body sees the need to use the blood sugar. Now, for some lifestyle habits. The key is to treat the whole process like a marathon. So it's going to take time and it's going to be for the long haul where you're trying to develop new lifestyles and new ways of doing things. So they're going to need to be practiced in order to stick. When it comes to movement, the CDC recommends getting in 150 minutes of moderate intensity activity a week. And moderate meaning that your heart rate's up, your breathing's up. You can have a conversation, but you probably can't sing to give you an idea of what that feels like. And that can be distributed across the week, that 150 minutes. For example, 5 days a week for 30 minutes a day. And additionally, getting in 2 days of strengthening activities. And movement is so important because muscle plays a major role in regulating blood glucose. And it can even use up to between 70 and 90% of blood glucose after eating. And muscle also improves insulin sensitivity. Here's another fun fact for you. Research shows that exercise can stimulate your muscles to use blood sugar more efficiently for up to 24 to 48 hours after just one session of exercise. That is long-term blood glucose control, and that is incredible. Moderate activity gets your heart rate up, and it can be even something as simple as brisk walking, and that moderate activity additionally helps to protect your heart and lower blood pressure. Strengthening activities, on the other hand, are just as important. Strengthening movements increase muscle mass, help you to get stronger, and that boosts our metabolism. It also can help us retain bone density, which is so important as we get older too. And on the other hand, sedentary behaviors show a decrease in insulin sensitivity while also elevating blood glucose levels. Because your muscles are not moving, there's no reason for your cells to accept blood glucose. But even if your job involves sedentary work, um, you can combat those effects by getting up and interrupting sitting every 30 minutes and getting in some light movement. And it doesn't have to be a lot. It can even be something as small as 2 to 3 minutes of walking. Or if you can't get up, that's also fine. You can do arm exercises. The goal is if you're using those large muscle groups, like in your arms and your legs, that is what will lower your blood glucose levels. But if getting in movement isn't already a part of your routine, it can be hard. But it's not necessary for anyone to try something new and carve out a chunk of time in their day, but it can be something as small as doing more of what you're already doing. I will say first that hydration is especially helpful because being well hydrated can give you more energy just to move and do things. And it may also happen that you get up more throughout the day when you're well hydrated anyway. And while you're up, you might walk around the floor or take a lap around the building before going back to your workstation. Or maybe give yourself a few extra steps by parking further away or taking multiple trips to bring in the groceries. And instead of thinking about it as if you're losing time, reframe it to acknowledge the opportunities that you're taking to improve your health. If you are a walker, you might try walking faster or up a hill or stairs. If you can't get out of your seat, chair workouts exist too, and they could be a really fun challenge. If you are looking to add something new, there are free apps for all levels, including the Nike Training or Run Club. YouTube is a great free resource. There is something for everyone. But you can also try activities like dancing or hiking or playing with the young children in your family. These are all great ways to get moving too without even feeling like you're exercising. When it comes to stress, stress can lead to certain habits that increase risk for type 2 diabetes. And these include emotional eating or reaching for snacks that are high in fat, sugar, and salt. But it's also even possible to feel hungrier due to the hormonal imbalance of stress hormones. Additionally, while feelings of hunger may increase, the motivation to actually do any physical activity can also decrease. So, managing stress can help to clear our mind and help make healthier choices throughout the day. Meditation and mindfulness has so much research supporting its benefits, including enhancing attention, improving memory, mood, and emotional regulation. And stress creates more energy for the body. So, actually, moving your body can help process all of that excess energy. Nature is also a fabulous way to help calm the nervous system. Or you can reach out to family and friends to help process stress. And they can also just overall increase positive feelings. So take some time today to do something for you, engage in some hobbies that you love, and do things to energize you. But well being as a whole is interconnected. So getting good sleep and healthy nutrition can really help reduce stress because you have everything that you need to function optimally. So, today, when you take some time to do something nice for you, even if it's something small, thank yourself for making that one intentional choice to improve your health. And hopefully, that makes it easier to make even more healthy choices throughout the rest of the day. And finally, like I have alluded to just a second ago, sleep is a pivotal cornerstone to health. I used to think that I did not need the recommended full 8 or 7 to 8 hours of sleep because I could still function off of 6. But sleep actually helps to regulate hormones and also improve insulin sensitivity. A night of short sleep actually has been shown to increase fasting blood glucose levels the next day. Individuals that get less than 6 hours of sleep a night report eating more calorically dense foods, and those that are typically high in added sugars from snacks and beverages. I myself love a flavored latte, but I will say that it is that much easier to reach for one when I'm tired. But I do recognize that we each have our own unique lifestyles that can make it hard to achieve the 7 to 8 hour recommendation. And so work on sleep hygiene practices like dimming the lights in the evening and developing a personal wind down routine to help make the sleep that you can get as restful as possible. Now, more about the UC Santa Cruz Diabetes Prevention Program. If you are at risk for prediabetes or type 2 diabetes and you want some support implementing these strategies and lifestyle changes, we have this UC system-wide program that is CDC approved and is a lifestyle change program to help reduce risk. The goal here is to help folks develop sustainable changes that work for their life, that support their own preferences and their own health goals. I lead your program as the health coach, and the program lasts for 1 year long. Each session is an hour long and held weekly for the first 3 months, and then it's held monthly throughout the rest of the year. So it is a time commitment, but you will gain education on nutrition, help with adding more physical activity, as well as support and ideas from the others that are in your cohort. We start our next cohort in January, and it's held Tuesdays at noon. But if that doesn't work for you in your schedule, we can take a look at matching you with another UC cohort. Or if you'd like to start sooner, UC Merced has a cohort starting in October, as well as UC Santa Barbara in early November. And the Santa Barbara is an all Spanish speaking cohort. So if you'd like more information, you can scan the QR code and sign up for more, or you can always email me if you have any questions. So thank you so much for joining today. I hope that you found at least one thing that was helpful to you. Let me know if you have any questions, and if you'd like more information on the DPP program, drop me a message in my email and I'll be happy to get back to you. Bye.